Welcome into a Monday edition of Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, what I'm looking for tonight in the Falcons-Jets preseason game. Youth has replaced any chance of complacency, and there's no real easy solution in the Marcelo Zuna situation. We'll talk about all that next. Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Welcome into a Monday edition of Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Head to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta into that search browser. Hit that subscribe button when you find us. Free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Leave us a 5-star review there. And, of course, follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Seems like it's been a long time since we've been able to talk about a Falcons preseason game, right? But it will come fast and furious this week because we get the Jets and Falcons coming up here tonight from New Jersey. And then Saturday, it will be the final preseason game. It'll be against the Jaguars. That will be their only Mercedes-Benz preseason game. And, of course, they're going to do some joint practices this week as well. So we gave you some synopsis about what we were looking for in the first game. What are we looking for tonight in this game? Well, let's start with the number one thing that I want to see is there any separation in the battle at center? So at this point, we know that center is the only spot that is up for grabs. And it truly is a competition. If you talk to folks and you get the inside information and this, that, and the other, it does seem like Matt Hennessy, believe it or not, is in the lead, which surprises me a little bit because I think they want to do everything they can to get Drew Dahlman to take that job because, let's face it, he is the guy that this administration, this regime, if you will, draft. So I want to see if there starts to become any separation from Drew Dahlman and Matt Hennessy. You know, Dahlman played 50% or so of the snaps in the first preseason game. Hennessy, I want to say it was around 13%. It was a very wide gap between the percentage of snaps they played. I expect Hennessy to take the majority of snaps tonight in this game, just simply because they want to make it a fair competition and give him a shot to see what he can do. So that battle is the only thing, one of the only real battles that is left right now in training camp. But this is not going to get solved tonight. This is going to go through Saturday. And as we get into game prep for week 1, when September 11th, they play the New Orleans Saints, I think even leading into that week, it's going to be still kind of a competitive battle through practices and finishing up camp and everything else that goes along with it. So that's the first thing I want to see is, what do the centers look like? Does anybody kind of continue to separate themselves from one another? Or, again, as the Spider-Man meme is, it's the same guy that's out there. The interior defensive line is another thing that I'm looking for, as well as Marlon Davidson out, we know, for the rest of the preseason. We'll see about whether or not he makes the roster. We talked about this last week. And, look, it's not like the guys that stand next to Grady are just immensely talented guys, right? I mean, the Taquan Grahams and, Anthony Rush and people like this, that, and the other. It ain't like there's a lot that's around him. So let's see what this looks like, because if it is going to be eventually life without Marlon Davidson, then these battles or the way that these guys play, these are the guys going to line up beside Grady. Unless you're telling me we're going to get Ndamukong Suh or Corey Peters or whatever, unless we're going to get somebody to go help Grady out, it's a bunch of vagabonds that are going to be around Grady Jarrett. I know they like Taquan Graham, but anyway. All right, we'll talk more about this here in just a second. But first, let me talk about my folks over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your best and easiest resource for all of your betting needs. Look, we are in college football game week, right? Not a myth, not we're getting close, this, that, and the other. This weekend is college football's first week of the season. We have college football from now until going into next year, right? You've got NFL preseason games. You still got golf. You still got boxing, MMA. Everything you want and all of your information that you need is at betonline.net. your number one resource for all of your betting needs, esports, scores, podcast information. Everything is real handy. Take that mobile device, put betonline.net in there, get all of your sports wagering information. So, listen, we got Falcons tonight. You want to put a few ducats on it, go for it. BetOnline.net, your number one source, and that's where the game starts. So besides center and interior defensive line, I want to see if there's a wide receiver who's going to emerge. Now, I would expect that we will see Bryan Edwards in this game. We got little bits and pieces of all the hodgepodge of wide receivers that we have, the Auden Tates, the Kadero Hodges, right? Olamide Zaccheaus, this mishmash of all of these guys where there's not really a clear number one. I mean, your top wide receiver is probably your tight end in this situation. But, I wonder if the philosophy is going to be the same to be a very run-heavy offense because you're still trying to figure out your running back and their depth and the rotation of the guys and this and the other. But I want to see them throw it around a little bit in this game and see if anybody kind of steps to the forefront as far as who's got that connection, who's that compatibility, quarterback, wide receiver, where is that leaning toward? Because let's face it, we can talk about running the football all we want, but at some point, this is a passing league. You got to be able to push the ball downfield. You got to be able to throw the football. You got to be able to make plays in the passing game. And, right now, our wide receiver group leaves a lot, to be desired out there. So I'm hoping Edwards or somebody like that gets a chance to step up. We're going to see probably some guys like Troy Anderson tonight that didn't get to play last week. Okay, I'm ready to see some of these guys take that step forward. And then the other thing I'm looking for is you got to get home tonight. What do I mean by that? We talked about in the first game, getting some consistent pressure, okay? Starting to dial up that pass rush, okay? So you take that first step. They had a sack in the game, right? They got some good pressure. Ebiketie had some nice plays. All right, now it's get home time. Now we got to figure out how to get some guys and how to get them home. I mean, when I say get home, put the quarterback on the ground with the ball in his hand, and he's got to stand up looking at his ear hole. Tonight's a night where you got a sack last time. I want to see at least 2 sacks, maybe 3, but I need to double that number. I know it's not much, but this team has got to find a way to get home. And especially with this interior defensive line rotation and trying to figure out those spots, and look, on the depth chart, the rookies are always listed as backups. That's why Ebiketie is not listed as a starter out there. But I don't care. Again, I don't care what the name is on the back of the jersey. If it's Carter, if it's Ogundeji, if it's Arnold Ebiketie, I don't care what the name is on the back of the jersey. What I want to see is guys getting home and getting the quarterback and attacking the quarterback. Jets have a pretty decent offensive line. They're about a middle-of-the-road offensive line in the NFL. You look at their rankings, they typically are somewhere between 14 and 18 in the NFL as far as rankings goes. So this is and look, they're not going to have Mekhi Becton, so we know he's out for the year, right? He went to IR and all that. So they are down a guy, but they grade out pretty well. And for a defensive front, that, let's face it, is obviously very challenged out there. I need to see my team make some plays and find a way to get home. I need to see the Falcons be able to get home. And again, I want to see that little bit of sense of urgency. I think Arthur Smith is playing to win in the preseason, and I got no problem and no issue with that. So we'll see what happens, tonight. Don't know really how long, don't really have a great sense for how long the starters are or are not going to play. Robert Saleh is already talking about they may not play the starters. I don't really care what the Jets are going to do. I care about what we're going to do. So we got to get home tonight. The battle at center. Can a wide receiver step up in this game tonight? And we'll see what this interior defensive line looks like. All right, when we come back, youth is going to replace any chance of there being complacency for the Atlanta Braves. I'll explain all that next. Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked on Sports Atlanta.